Alright guys, welcome to Formula 1 News. Drama at Aston Martin today with Lawrence Stroll bringing the hammer down, it seems, after an underwhelming 2024 season ahead of the arrival of Adrian Newey, but also Lando Norris making a statement that he's confident in his abilities going into 2025, much more than he was during and maybe even beyond last season to some degree. He reckons he is now ready to challenge Max Verstappen. Would Max agree, given his word that he'd have easily won the championship in last year's McLaren? That is a comment for you guys to have your thoughts on in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Just starting here, a couple of weeks ago now, I talked about the fact that Breaking Point, a company that I'm involved with, we're expanding into Formula 1 and we've got many projects lined up over the next couple of months that hopefully are going to make the community experience way better in the scene. We think there's potential there. We've started the X account, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. We're going to have some great content coming out on this year. There's obviously going to be new stuff, but also stuff like this, which is, well, Lyman put this beautiful card together on Hamilton's Mercedes career. We'll do stuff like this as well for not even just current drivers, but also some of the legends of the sport and icons of the sport as well. So yeah, either feel free to follow if you use the Twitter X platform, whatever you call it. I'll put it in the description box below. You know, I'll remind you at the end of the video as well if you want to. Otherwise, if you do use it, maybe one of these things will come up in your timeline anyway. But yeah, appreciate all the support when all the guys reached out to me when we talked about building the social team around this, and it's very early days anyway. But yeah, just wanted to let you know, because lots of people got in touch, that the project is off the ground and we are moving fast. Let's give an update on the Alpine situation. Franco Colapinto has joined as their third driver, their test driver, their reserve driver. Maybe not for long. We did discuss these rumours yesterday, but now there's been further talk that apparently Doohan's contract is only for the first quarter of the season. He's only guaranteed 6 races in the team. And this is a difficulty, right? Because Alpine think they know the type of job that Colapinto could do. So Doohan has to not only match, but frankly exceed expectations, potentially quite considerably, for them to say he deserves the seat. Because, you know, Briatore, if Doohan has an okay first few races, you know, Briatore might look at it and say, well, Colapinto might do a better job than that. We're going to put him in the car instead. We've only contracted you for the first 6 rounds anyway. Doohan's got to be really, really good and make it to the point where they wouldn't be comfortable believing that Colapinto would do a significantly better job. So, you know, the target is on his back. The pressure is seriously on. Whether that was a dynamic that Alpine should have created, I don't really think so, but like that's how Briatore wants to run the team. There was some talk as well on which test it was where Doohan was semi-underwhelming. We talked yesterday how we did a couple of tests in November. They brought Gasly along. The theory, of course, going that his test wasn't very good. There was some other talks that it was actually the test post Abu Dhabi, when he was not especially fast, and also a circuit where he is, you know, driven many a time before, right? Abu Dhabi, I think he even won it in Formula 2, but, you know, he obviously drove the Grand Prix there as well. A circuit where he has lots of testing time, and reportedly his pace was not especially impressive there. So maybe mixed opinions behind the scenes on Doohan at Alpine. To such an extent, they've pulled the trigger on Colapinto and spent big money to make it happen. And even this, right, poor Doohan, I think, because James Vowles, Colapinto's former team boss, said this: "We believe this agreement with Alpine represents Franco's best chance of securing a race seat in 2025 or 2026. So even Vowles is saying that Doohan's cooked, right? Because, you know, it says a couple of things. Firstly, that they are very confident Williams in their own driver lineup, as they should be. But I think there was some discussion as to, well, you know, what if Albon goes up against Sainz and gets crushed and maybe he's not performing so well? Would Colapinto be a good backup man? Sure. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Sainz and Albon are going to work relatively well. I think they're going to be reasonably competitive with each other. That's just my feeling. But yeah, I know that's a matter for debate going into the new season. But clearly, Williams are confident that they've got a good lineup. They've also got, like, I think it's Zach O'Sullivan as well, other juniors that they might want to consider. And they, you know, want to do right by Franco, and fair enough. But they're sending him to Alpine basically saying, yeah, very good chance he gets a race drive there, either the coming year or the year after. So, yeah, Vowles, in the same way that Briatore seems to not especially be respecting Doohan's contract, Vowles seems to feel the same way. And they do have some serious depth over there at Alpine. Do they have the strength that they previously had with Alonso, Ocon and Piastri? All of those guys gone? Like, no. But they do have some depth. I mean, Gasly, I think, is very good. And then Colapinto has proven himself to some degree. Doohan, Paul Aaron as well, excellent driver. I mean, like, he had an up and down Formula 2 campaign, but he's been in the mix for some time. And then, of course, Hirakawa, who they confirmed yesterday. So, I don't know. I'm just kind of confused at the Alpine approach, to be honest. Just before we discuss the Alpine stuff, James Vowles was talking how Williams have made, as far as he sees, substantial progress, not just for this year, but certainly the year beyond in 2026. He just says all the crashes masked a lot of that, and he might not be wrong, to be fair. Like, had they not crashed as much, their car would probably have been much better with the money they'd have had for upgrades and not just rebuilding the car every week that they had to do plenty of times. Wasn't just Sargent's fault, although, of course, Sargent did have a part to play in that. But earlier today, Aston Martin confirmed restructuring of its senior management team. I mean, look at their facility. These guys are serious, right? Like, Lawrence Stroll is serious. He wants to build the best team in Formula 1. And on paper, he's putting everything in place to potentially achieve it. And that includes what we have seen today. Now, Mike Krack, despite having a sensational name, has not necessarily been the best team principal, I would argue, for Aston Martin. And to be fair, obviously 2023 started incredibly well, but mainly because, I would argue, Ferrari, McLaren, Mercedes dropped the ball substantially compared to Aston Martin, and they had a great season. This year, though, and the end of last season, very underwhelming. It seems to have demotivated Lance Stroll to a great extent. And even Fernando Alonso seems to feel like, all right, just get me to 2026 and I can drive Newey's car and then I'll be a little bit happier. But Mike Krack was even talking recently, the gap between Stroll and Alonso is very small. He went on to say, in general, there's not much difference between the two. And it's like, well, even these comments weren't enough to save his job because he's gone. Well, he's not gone. He's still there, but he's no longer in the role that he was. So Lawrence Stroll has decided, and understandably, this is how Lawrence Stroll works. If things aren't working, he will make changes in the technical structure. I also wonder if Adrian Newey has had a part to play in this, whether, okay, Newey's not joined yet, but was he on the phone saying, like, this is how I would organize things? Because Newey's joining as like a super consultant or whatever you want to say, where he's in that very top role. I think they called him the managing technical partner or something like that anyway. So he kind of makes the calls. And well, Andy Cowell, a big name in Formula 1, probably a name that many of you aren't that familiar with, but we'll discuss him in more detail in a second. He is going to become CEO and team principal with immediate effect of the team. Mike Krack is demoted as chief trackside officer now. I know that initially they said, oh, Mike Krack has chosen to move to this role. But I mean, I know that other people said that elsewhere, but the reality is Aston Martin are pretty straightforward with it. And especially when it says immediate effect, that always seems to imply someone's kind of been fired. So, yeah, Mike Krack's gone. He's now the CTO, but not the chief technical officer, the chief trackside officer for some reason. And he will continue to focus on getting the most performance out of the car at the racetrack, but no longer as the team principal. And then Enrico Cardile, former Ferrari man, he is the new chief technical officer. He will now focus 100% on, on the competitive ingenuity challenge of creating a new race car. He will oversee the architecture, design, and build of new race cars. They don't actually mention Newey, I don't believe, but the point is really that Cardile will be the one executing Newey's ideas. That, I think, is the structure, and Andy Cowell taken over as their new CEO and team principal. This is a big deal, and Andy Cowell is, well, as we're about to describe, a major name in the history of Formula 1. Most notably, the head of Mercedes high-performance powertrain for many years. Engine engineer. But also, according to various reports, an excellent leader of men, a leader of people, a leader of a team, an inspirational figure. And there's a very good reason why there was lots of talk when Andy Cowell initially joined Aston Martin to say, wow, like, this is a big signing. Newey's a big signing, but Andy Cowell is also a very big signing as well, and it definitely signifies intent. Mark Hughes, who knows a fair thing or two about Formula 1, said the following. I won't share the entire article, but just kind of wanted to share his thoughts on Andy Cowell and why he might be the absolute perfect man for this job. So he's obviously worked with Cosworth, BMW, and then of course with Mercedes in 2014, especially redefining F1 engine technology. at frankly a crucial time because they're working with Honda, but I'm sure Cowell can be involved in that process in developing the new engines for 2026. For Cowell, the remarkable is always within reach. It's only ever a case of working out the route. That alone would make him one of the most significant engineers in F1's history, but that this guy should also be that most rare of things, an engineer gifted at leadership and inspiring a team. That all of those things should be embodied in one man is just astonishing. Under his MD-ship, Mercedes high-performance powertrains had become the dominant engine force of perhaps the most engine-dominated formula the championship had ever devised. He did it through imbuing the team of several hundred bright competitive minds with his own mindset and getting them all working in the same direction. He somehow herded the cats, minimizing losses in the system, just as he would have done with designing an engine. All done with a down-to-earth sparkle of a racer's mischief. There's no I am about Andy, no stiff formality. The bubbling energy is always close to the surface, but he's approachable and brilliant at explaining complex terms in a way readily understandable to an interested layman. So, yeah, pretty good gas, gotta say. And I think there's a good possibility that, you know, Cowell's signing in the same way with Newey will potentially reinvigorate someone like Fernando Alonso. Now, of course, things always take time, and the reality is that it's really 2026 that Aston Martin are seriously targeting, but they're making changes now, and I wouldn't be surprised if Newey had had some part to play in the way this structure is being designed, because he wanted Newey to go into Ferrari and say, look, Fred Vasseur, I know you want to do it this way, but actually, no, this is what we're going to do. And Vasseur was like, I can't give you that much power, like, we're not going to be able to make that work, certainly as Ferrari. Aston Martin are willing to, and they're willing to give Cowell the power required as well, and Newey and Cowell, it seems, will be the ones structuring the way they want the technical team to go. And frankly, we should see some consequences of that this year. Like, the Aston Martin should be, if these things go to plan, stronger than it has been for the last 18 months or so. And if we don't see that, there are questions. But then again, Lawrence Stroll's focus is really on 2026 and, you know, making it so that his son can win the championship. But I don't know if it's going to be so clear-cut as that. So intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. As De Kester describes Enrico Cardili as the new technical director, and he will be the executor of Newey's ideas. But let's talk about what's happening at McLaren, and certainly in terms of the favourites for the upcoming championship. Alonso, Stroll, they're not going to be the favourites in 2025. They're not going to be the favourites in 2026, but who knows what potentially happens there. The favourite for the new season is kind of difficult to argue. I would say it's still Max Verstappen, just because you know he's going to be the lead Red Bull driver. You know that he's going to have a car that's at least respectable, you'd imagine, from Red Bull, and you know that he's going to be incredibly hard to beat. But I could also see an argument to say that Lando Norris is the favourite. I don't really think you can argue that either of the Ferrari drivers are favourites. It's not guaranteed that Ferrari are going to be more competitive than McLaren next year. It also is guaranteed that Hamilton and Leclerc will take significant points off each other. You might have an opinion on which driver's going to be stronger, but and like, if you knew that Ferrari was going to be the strongest car next year, then sure, one of these guys would arguably be the favourite, depending on your perspective. But the only realistic favourites, in my opinion, are probably Max and Lando. Not like these other guys can't win the championship, they can, but in terms of being number one most likely to win it, it's probably not a Ferrari driver. It's not going to be Piastri, just because of what's happened this most recent season at McLaren. And, you know, it's not going to be Russell or Antonelli, let's be honest. So it's Norris versus Max on paper again for the new season. That may not be at all how it plays out in reality, but going into the year, that has to be part of our expectations. And Lando, let's not forget, he won the Grand Prix in Abu Dhabi. He secured the team the Constructors' Championship, and he came on the radio and said, look, next year is not just our year, it's also my year. I'm winning the championship next time around. And with questions, I've questioned Lando's confidence, the dog within, whatever you want to say, right? Like the fact that Piastri may be slower, maybe less consistent in qualifying, but he will send a big dive bomb on Charles Leclerc into turn one at Baku and end up winning the race. And of course, these are some of the questions that we have had on Lando Norris, but I wanted to share this clip here from a video that he put out on his YouTube channel a few days ago now, where he was kind of discussing the confidence. I think he says the word confidence about 5 times in 40 seconds. So, well, it seems to me, I like the words from Lando. It feels like after Abu Dhabi, with everything that's happened this season, not expecting really to be embroiled in what ended up being a championship fight, Lando's learned a lot, and he feels like he is now the man and the driver capable of challenging Max properly for a title.
Team is what I care about so much. I don't want to let them down. So there is that pressure from my side that I have to go out and deliver and do my job on track. which is just driving the car quickly and not making mistakes. I'm confident, and for those of you who know me, I'm not a guy who's normally full of confidence. But for the first time, as with a couple of things, for the first time I'm confident I'm in a good place, and I'm very confident in my own ability, my ability to go out and perform, to qualify well, to race well, to make good decisions, to help the team, to not make mistakes. I know I've made mine this year, but I'm confident that I've learned from a lot of these things, and a lot of them are crucial ones in terms of fighting for a championship.
So I guess the question is, do you believe him? And frankly, does it matter how confident he is if, he's not got the ability, wheel to wheel, whatever you want to say? I'm more confident, I think, having heard that from Lando than I've been before. I like the way that he talks about the team. I like the way that he's talked about his own development. I still have my questions, of course, but Lando's pace is no question at all. The question has always been decision-making in difficult situations, ability to deliver under pressure as well. And I think there's a good argument to say the championship attempts that he put together this season has definitely moulded and grown him as a driver. Will he perform in those situations in the future again as he has done today? I don't think so. It may still happen though. And again, there's always a question on Lando's mentality. Sure, you might be confident, but as Mike Tyson used to say, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? And then maybe things, Max only has to force you off track one time, all of a sudden, the thoughts on whether you're good enough to beat him come back, or whatever you want to say. Now, there was talk about this season, on whether Lando needs to change his approach to racing him. Anthony Davidson made the point about Austria. You guys remember in Austria when Max, Lando sent the dive bomb, which is this image, and then Max obviously squeezed him to the left-hand side, they made contact, puncture, damage. Max's race was ruined, he came 5th. Lando's race was destroyed. He was out of the race entirely and scored 0 points on the weekend. A big weekend in the context of the championship. Lando came out after the race and said, I've got no respect for Max if he doesn't apologise for this. And Max didn't apologise. And the next weekend, Lando was like, I guess it's okay. And, I don't feel like they need to destroy their friendship. But I don't think Anthony Davidson is wrong to say that Lando needs to stick to his guns a bit more. You can't allow Max to dictate the relationship and to dictate the way that you're going to drive on track. Hamilton in the fight with Verstappen in 2021, I don't think was, he didn't want to drive in the way that Verstappen was driving in, the reckless way that we saw on occasions, but Hamilton absolutely needed to be and was in Silverstone willing to say, look, Max, I'm not just going to play to your rules. Like, however controversial that moment is, this is how things work when you've got two alpha drivers in a championship battle. Like, you've got to make the other guy know that you're there and you're not going to go away. And as much as I'm sure Max had his thoughts on Silverstone, I'm sure that he felt slightly differently about that dynamic after that Grand Prix. And Nico Rosberg said the same thing just a couple of days ago, that Lando needs to make sure that he himself pushes for a new limit in his battles with Max. You don't necessarily have to take Max's approach to racing, but you do need to not be a pushover. And I think, this is what COTA looks like anyway. At COTA this year, I know there was drama, but the most egregious one was turn 1, when Lando just opened up the door on the inside. He didn't leave it wide open, but he allowed Max to just go down the inside and push him off the track. And it's like, these are the things that Norris, I guess, is confident that he will not allow to repeat themselves. But whether you think that's enough, enter your thoughts in the comments below. If you do want to follow the Breaking Point, Twitter page, your opportunity is now. Enter your thoughts and comments. I already said that. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. I'd greatly appreciate it. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.